All right. All right. All right. All right. What's happening? Okay. So I'm going to get right into it. You guys already know I don't waste a lot of time. Forgive me for where I'm pointing and looking. I've got YouTube, I've got my school private community, and I've got Instagram. So, yeah, so thank you guys for joining me here today. I appreciate all of you being here for another episode of Think Thursdays at 3, and that's 3 p.m. Central. But yeah, getting right into it. So, what I want you guys to know is that this space is intentional. It is definitely intentional. There's no pressure, no spotlight, just pure understanding. Okay. So I want to start with something very simple yet very powerful. Now, most people don't struggle with their health, with their food, or consistency because you lack discipline, right? You struggle, or people struggle, usually because they're trying to change alone and they're carrying or trying to listen to so many different people all at once. That's usually the problem that I find most common with all or a lot of my clients. Okay. Um, so let me say that again. Most people struggle with their health goals because they're trying to change alone, and they're also usually trying to change listening to so many different people. And that part about listening to so different people is something that I carry myself, personally, because when I was starting my business, I was trying to listen to so many different coaches, so many different gurus, and so many different, whatever, like do this, do that, and trying to get everything, looking at all the different shiny new objects. And I was chasing all of it, and it didn't help me because I was spreading myself too thin. I was confusing myself even more. So this is how I know that I recognize this when I see this with my clients. When you're trying to uh, get better clarity on your health and you're trying to listen to so many different people, and that's usually the reason why. Okay. Because some of us have been blaming ourselves for years. So we're just, again, trying to figure it all out. So you're not failing because you're weak. You're not failing because you lack discipline. You're not failing because you don't want it bad enough. You're failing, or I wouldn't even say failing, but it's really tough. And a lot of you guys are struggling because you're trying to change in environments that don't support learning. Okay. And again, forgive me for all the different directions that I'm looking: YouTube, Instagram, school, all that good stuff. Um, but a lot of people are struggling because you've been trying to change again in environments that don't support your learning. So, as today, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about places and environments that support you while you're growing. All right. Because we live in a culture that worships discipline, right? Discipline as far as stop eating that, just stop eating that. I don't understand. Why don't you just start eating that? Stop eating that. Or just go harder, or just pray more, or just meditate more, or just get back on track, right? This world of discipline is just really not helpful because, on the surface, if we're being honest, it sounds pretty reasonable. But the thing is, discipline works better after the support is in place. Discipline works better after the support is in place, not before. So, discipline is what helps you maintain something once your nervous system feels safe, and once you understand your patterns, once your body kind of trusts the process. So if you're listening to so many different gurus and so many different do this, do that, you're not really trusting it, because if you did, you would only listen in really one direction. Let that sink in. If you're listening to so many different people and trying to incorporate so many different things all at once, deep down, your nervous system already knows you're not trusting the process, right? So, discipline cannot replace that support. And when we try to use discipline instead of support, what usually happens is we burn out, we shame ourselves, we start and we stop, and we start and we stop. We hide our struggles. We judge ourselves really quickly, right? And then eventually that leads to quitting. So when I hear people say, you don't love yourself enough, or trainers or coaches, right? I've heard a lot of trainers and supporters say, you just don't love yourself enough. That's why you're not changing. That's why you eat the way that you do, because you don't love yourself enough. That's a really harsh statement that I had to learn myself. Okay. And I was able to hear myself more clearly when I heard someone say it that was closest to me at that time. When I heard them say, she doesn't love herself, that's why she keeps eating meat and dairy and all these things, because he was a plant based person, or he is. And he was ridiculing someone else for saying, you don't love yourself enough. That's why you keep getting sick. That's why you have fibroids. That's why you're in and out of the hospital, because you don't love yourself enough. That's why you can't stop. It made me pause for a second and was like, so the child that you guys share, she allows him to eat the same ways that she does. So are you saying she doesn't love you guys as child? He paused in his tracks and he thought about it for a second. He was like, no, she doesn't. And I was like, well, stop. Like, stop. The way that you praise her on the way that she parents, don't do that. Like, he'd rather say that in fear of just being wrong and just saying, you know what, you're actually right. That's a good point, right? It's really tough. So, again, change, it just can be really, really heavy to carry alone. Okay. So here's what I want you guys to understand: judgment, whether it comes from others or from ourselves, that doesn't motivate the brain. It doesn't motivate your brain. It actually does quite the opposite. So when you feel judged, your nervous system, it goes into protection mode. When you feel judged, or when you judge someone else, and usually you're judging someone else because deep down you feel that same issue too. That's why it's so obvious to you, because you feel it as well. Okay. But judgment does not help you grow. Judgment does not help you learn. Judgment does not really protect you either, but it's a form of protection as well. Okay. But in protection mode, the brain usually prioritizes comfort over change. It prioritizes familiarity over improvement. It prioritizes relief over long-term goals. So that's when cravings get louder. That's why I talk about a lot of things outside of food, because food usually is just rarely about hunger. It's rarely about hunger. A lot of times our food choices come from the outside world, right? So when you're feeling judged or you're judging other people, again, that's when your cravings get loud. That's when old habits start to resurface. That's when food becomes a coping mechanism yet again. Okay? So a lot of things, or a lot of times, we can feel out of control. But again, it's really just your nervous system really trying to self-soothe. Okay? So when someone tells you just stop doing this and stop doing that, your body feels overwhelmed. And that instruction, again, doesn't land as help, it lands as pressure. And when pressure doesn't create transformation, support does. And once again, I'm in the middle, joining me from my private school community to YouTube and Instagram. So forgive me for looking at all different places. But yeah, but that's what we're talking about today. Okay. A lot of people fail, quote unquote, because they lack support. All right. Now, let me be very clear on something. Support does not mean excuses. Support does not mean allowing yourself to stay stuck. And support does not mean avoiding responsibility. I'm definitely not that kind of coach, okay? But I will support you when you want to understand, why does something keep happening? Why do you feel stuck in your habits? What's driving your current habits? That's the kind of support that I give, okay? Support is what allows honesty. And if we don't confront what's really going on, we're going to keep missing it. We're going to keep waiting until Monday. We're going to keep waiting until January if you don't get honest about some things. Because honesty is where the change truly begins to happen. And listen, I understand better than anybody, right? I understand that people need help with their relationship with food. And again, it's why I talk about food last, because all the other things that surround us is what drives our food choices. Okay? Stress. Stress is another thing that I talk about a lot, because that changes our appetite. Anybody realize that? Yes, when you want chips, when you want cookies, that's stress talking. Okay? It's why certain times of the day is harder. That's actually why I chose this time to talk and give you your snack. Okay, we can start to look at snacks differently, things that we gravitate toward. We can start to have a different perspective on those things, right? So, my newsletter is called Your 3 p.m. Snack, because a lot of times around that time, when the day has gotten the heaviest, we reach towards something that's familiar and comforting to us. But I want to interrupt that pattern and bring Think Thursdays to you. It's like, hey, okay, let me actually address what's really going on. It's not that the food is going to change anything. It's going to give me temporary relief, absolutely. But it's not going to give me the kind of change that I'm really seeking, because my body is asking for more. So I want to support you in that area, right? Support creates clarity. Clarity creates choice, and choice is what creates the change. So I thank you guys for being here. Okay. Um, Let me give you guys another truth that I want to name gently. Let me do that. And I appreciate the questions that I'm getting on YouTube. Join me in my private school community for the questions that I usually answer at the end. But yeah. So anyway, because I don't want to diverge too much from my message. All right. Food often becomes the messenger when support is missing. So, food typically becomes comfort when emotions aren't held. Food typically becomes relief when stress isn't regulated. And food really controls, or food is can be used as a control when life feels unpredictable. So instead of asking yourself certain questions like, why can't I stop doing this? Or why can't I stop eating this? Here's a more powerful question. What is my body trying to manage right now? Ask yourself, instead of judging, why can't I stop doing this and getting frustrated? Ask yourself, what is my body trying to manage right now? I think that's more of a powerful question for yourself. Because when you ask yourself better questions, you get a better outcome. Okay? So again, this is why I created this think space, because I wanted to help you think better about your choices. I don't tell people what to eat. I don't hand out more rules. You don't need that. You don't necessarily need more recipes, even though I share some sometimes. But I just creating and giving out more shame and scaring tactics, that doesn't help you with your health goals. But I created this space to help you learn, and in a space where you feel safe learning, right? And I didn't create this space because I've always had it figured out. I created it because I didn't have it figured out, right? So when people feel safe enough to understand themselves, their behavior starts to change naturally. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you love ball heads. Thank you. I want to shave it even more than this, but it won't. It's tough. But anyway, I'm trying to stay focused. All right. All right. So again, this space that I created, it was never about trying to create more discipline. I've been there, being a former D1 athlete, and remembering all of my coaches from middle school to college was like, you just need more discipline and da da da, whatever. That was cool for then, but this is now real life, right? This is about, again, supporting you in your learning. And I want to give people permission to be curious. I want to give you the language for what you're experiencing. And I want to give you the space to ask your questions without embarrassment. You've heard no question is too dumb, or too small or too silly and all those kind of things, but a lot of us don't really truly feel that deep down. So you can ask me whatever questions that you have in the private school community. Okay. You don't have to speak to be supported here. You don't have to be ready for to change everything, because we know that changing everything all at once, that doesn't work. And you don't have to be perfect in order to get it, because we know that that doesn't exist. We have to get rid of all of these things we've heard all these years, because it does not work. It just doesn't. All you need to do is just be willing to understand yourself a little bit better than you did yesterday. That's all I ask. Just that 1% better. Looking to get 1% better. That's all I ask, right? When you have a desire to want to get 1% better, that's when habits shift. That's how you trust your body to build results. And that's how change becomes sustainable. Okay? When you have a desire to get 1% better, that's when you start to have those changes. Just think about it. If you think about 1% better on the surface, you may think that that's not a lot. And I'm not even saying 1% better every day. I'm saying, let's just say 1% better every week. If you total that all up over a year, that's 52% better. And can we be honest with ourselves and look back on last year, 2025, and say, are we more than half percent better than we were in 2024? If you're here, my guess is not. Okay. And that is not to shame you. Again, we have to get to a place where we're honest with ourselves in order to see real change. So if you focus on just 1% better each week, over the next year, your 2026 and 27 and here on out is going to be amazing. Okay. But I'm not saying that to put pressure on yourself. I'm just saying, let's dial back from having these huge goals and stressing ourselves out for not being at that huge goal, and just focus, set the goal and then just leave it alone. Does that make sense? Set the goal and then leave it alone. Look at the smaller chops, what it takes to get there to reach that goal. Okay. So if today kind of hit you in the head, but it hit you somewhere deeper, that's not random. Okay. That is not random. Continue to stay curious. Continue to stay supported and let understanding do what discipline never could. All right. Gratitude for you guys being here. I appreciate you. If you're joining me from anywhere outside of school, remember I don't answer the questions that people have publicly because people just feel more supported in a private community. So join me in my school at Fed Up. You just do a search for Fed Up, and then I'll help you answer your questions one on one. But I did get some questions that people DM me, whether they're here right now or not. These are the questions I will answer. Um, the first one is, where in your health journey do you feel most? Oh, oh, okay. All right. Sorry. I had to reach this question. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna keep it just private for right now. But right now I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. Let me ask, where do you feel unsupported in your health journey? Is it emotionally? Is it physically? Is it spiritually? Is it health wise? Again, physical is that's health as well. But yeah, where do you guys feel most unsupported right now? And you guys can let me know. Um, what are some habits that you wish that you guys can change? Thank you. I appreciate that. Y'all are so sweet. I appreciate you. All right, so I'm gonna cut off the additional Instagram and YouTube. You guys join me in my school. Hope to see you next Thursday. I'm looking to add another day of the week, but I'm not sure when that day is gonna be just yet. But I hope to see you soon. And I'm gonna answer some questions that I have. All right, we'll see you next time.